Hello?
Hello, this is Cassandra. We'll get started here pretty soon. Oh, I'm just letting people in, and at the same time, I just want to welcome those of you that have joined. My name is Cassandra Stouter. Yat e bene Aisha Cassandra Stouter Yenisha. Ashihan Nishle Auto Seminole Bashashchin. So I just introduced myself in my native tongue in case I have any relatives in the room. Um, we might be related. So, yeah, welcome to today's committee meeting. I really appreciate everyone's communication prior to and more communication that will come. I'm really excited today to welcome our special guest and our speaker today. She is someone that I met in DC actually this past year, and I heard her story. It was very personable, um, very motivating and inspiring, actually. So I'm really excited for you all to hear her journey and what it was like, and then also her contributions for today and her thoughts and expertise on not only her experience, but how she can help this committee. Maybe take a look at AZ ACEs for our children in a different view in terms of policy change and what that road might look like. So again, I'm really excited to introduce Gabrielle. So I'm just going to read her bio. And let's see here. Um, Here we go. Okay. Gabriella Kelly is a Pima County Recorder. Taking office in January 2021, she leads an office that oversees voter registration, early voting, and document recording for the county. She is a proud union dues paying former hashtag Red for Ed public school educator and community organizer. She is one of four women who co-founded uh, indivisible, Thano, a grassroots community organization that provides opportunities for education and civic engagement for members of her tribe. The Ta'ano O'odham Nation, um, she was, oh, she was inspired to run for office after encountering many systemic barriers preventing people from simply getting registered to vote. She lives with her husband, Ryan, and their two children who are now voting age. Yay! She is the first Native American to hold an elected Pima County office and one of the only 4 Native Americans to ever hold a county level office in Arizona. And I just want to give a very warm and welcoming introduction and allow Mrs. Kelly to come in and share with us, please.
Great, thank you so much. You can hear me fine?
Okay. Yes, we can.
And then just as a reminder, how much time do I have to share?
20 to 30 minutes, give or take. It's okay if you go a little bit over.
Okay, well, Skuktash, Anyanyap Chugi Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, Bismo Ochkuk, Amjud, Animutka Pima Chukshan Ohahandam. I also always introduce myself in the traditional way. In case there are any relatives, my name is Gabriella Cázares-Kelly. I'm from the communities of Bismo and Cook, which are really rural. Probably 300 people lived in the village that I grew up in. I am from the very southwest part of Arizona, from the Thon O'odham Nation. And I serve as the Pima County Recorder. We have around 680,000 registered voters here, so it's a fairly big county. And we are continuing to grow. And I've been in this position now 5 years, going into my 6th year as elected county recorder. Before this, as Cassandra shared, I was an educator. I have been a classroom teacher. I taught high school English in an alternative school, and in between going back to the classroom for the longest portion of my career, I was an academic advisor at a tribal community college. It's a community college just like any other, like Pima Community College or Maricopa Community College, except that there are more natives who attend there. And I got into this wormhole of voter registration completely by accident. A friend of mine at the tribal college, he had signed up to help register voters. He was working with an organization who provided him with the training and some materials. And he asked me, "Hey, do you want to hang out with me at the student lounge?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I want to goof off. Absolutely." And we set a couple of days to table. And the day of, he actually got pulled to go do maybe a campus tour or something. And I was stuck with the table. Well, I told him it's fine. I know I didn't go through the training, but I've registered myself. How hard could it be? Turns out it's very hard, especially for Native students, especially for young people in general. College students in general really struggle with registering to vote. And I learned that firsthand by trying to register the students at my school. It became such a wormhole. It was like I pulled a thread and the sweater was coming unraveled. About how difficult it was to actually get people registered to vote, not only because of non-standard addresses. So a lot of times people don't understand what a non-standard address is. A standard address is something like 123 West Cactus Road. Many of you probably have that type of address, but the address for the home where I grew up in Bisnamo'o, the only way that I can share it is by telling you the directions, which is going west on Highway 86, go south on Indian Route 15, drive into the village, turn right at the red fence, go down the dirt road, take a left at the Y, and it's the first house in the cluster of three across from the big tree. That's literally my address. There's no house number. There's no other way. And if I were explaining that to a medical emergency, the police or fire or anything like that, we would tell them by household. Oh, we're at the Cáceres household in Pismo, and then we go send people to stand on the road to wave in the emergency vehicles if needed. How do you explain that on a form? That's really difficult. Um, and so the more and more I learned about voter registration, the more and more I realized that it wasn't as simple as just filling out a piece of paper. Like there was so much additional context that needed to go into play before somebody could actually even register. Around that same time that I was really picking up on voter registration, maybe a few years after, um, I worked on the reservation, and Donald Trump was running for office, and one of his big, huge campaign platform ideas was to build a wall. Well, the Thought Out the Nation, we share 69 miles with the US and Mexico border. When I was growing up, you literally could just drive up to what we called it the gate, because there was a gate. And the youngest kid would jump off the truck, usually me, open it up because it was like homemade. It was a homemade border. You would drive through, and then you had to make sure to remember to close it, because if you didn't, the cows or the livestock might accidentally wander in or out of Mexico. That's how close we were. And that's how close we are. And we have communities on the other side. We used to cross over all the time for birthday parties and wakes and funerals and festivals and just to go shopping or just because we wanted tacos. Like we would travel there all the time. We would go there for ceremony. We would go there so many different reasons just to visit family. And so when Donald Trump started talking about building this border wall, this area that had already there's already pedestrian walls up, meaning people can go through, but not vehicles. Um, and all of that was put up without any regard to the environment, animals, to native graves and repatriation or anything like that. And so there was a bunch of federal protections that were just waived. They're literally waived. And so the community was really concerned and really scared. And at first, we started seeing this by people just writing about it on Facebook. And they would say things like, if they come with tractors, I'm going to sit out there with my shotgun. Let's see if they'll come on my land. And at first, it was kind of like, oh, come on, that's Fred. And I know his mom. He's not really going to do that. And it was something that we were able to just kind of dismiss. But then we were seeing more, and there was more and more fear. And it was coming out in this fear and in this anger. And people started asking, can they do that? Is that something they can do? Can they build a wall on reservation land? Like what happens? Can they do this? And people were really upset. And so my friends and I, we were not part of an organization or anything. We were just a group of friends who kept talking about it. We would talk about it every other day. And it would just, did you hear? Did you see what so-and-so said on Facebook? Did you see whatever? They were talking about it in this meeting that we were in. Or did you see the new article that came out? And that was the conversation. So we were very troubled by what was happening. And so my friend says, April Ignacio, she says, um, what if we made like a forum and we invited like the chairman of the tribe and maybe some lawyers and like maybe we could find out what's actually happening and like if they're working on something that they're not telling us about or like what are the possibilities. And so that's what we did. We scheduled an educational forum, and it was just four women, and we figured out ways to get food, and we just kind of donated a bunch of stuff. Um, we had somebody coming in to transcribe, and they were just here. This is where you're going to sit, and you're going to take notes on everything. And we invited our tribal leadership and we invited lawyers and we said, what is possible? What is the law? And we got standing room only. We filled up the entire auditorium with more than 200 people. Um, we ran out of food. And one of the things that we kept talking about over and over and over was, you know, does the president have the authority to do this? And what really started coming out was that some of this can be stopped by Congress. And we're like, oh, how do we can stop things by Congress or the Senate? And so then we said, well, how do we get the attention of the Congress and the Senate? Our congressperson, who at the time was Raul Grijalva, who came in opposition of that wall, but also our senators. And at the time, that was Jeff Flake and John McCain. And they hadn't made any statements on it. And so what we started to learn was that those legislators pay attention to voting blocks. They are concerned about their constituencies approving of the things that they say. And so around that same time, Indivisible as a national movement was going on. And you can look this up. I urge you to look it up. There's an Indivisible guide online. It started as a Google document from former DC interns, and they just talked about the effective ways that um, the Tea Party, the most recent Tea Party, created disruptions, and the way that their small group of people was able to influence those legislators. And so that would be things like having 10 people stand outside with signs and get media attention, and all of the things that created pressure. And so they took that indivisible guide, they wrote that down, and they shared it with everybody in hopes that people would fight for equity and inclusion and all of the things that I'm sure that any of you who are concerned about children also care about. And so we started adopting that model, and we had to indigenize it because that model was really only addressing the two senators in your state and the one congressperson. But we knew that we also had to connect with our tribal leadership and also our state leadership. And so what happened is we formed our group, and all it takes to form a group, by the way, is just a logo and a name. That's all you really need. And we formed a group. We called ourselves Indivisible Tono. Indivisible meaning undivided, and Tono meaning desert, undivided desert. That's what we were. And so we started what I like to call infiltrating. We started infiltrating places where politicians were talking about the things that they cared about, which were not included with the things that I cared about. So my community was struggling. My community was upset. They were worried that this was going to be the next Standing Rock, that we were going to have a flood of people coming to the desert to stand in solidarity, which sounds great on paper, but that also means strangers in our communities, strangers literally in our backyards. And it also means people maybe from Ohio or from New Zealand or from wherever who have never experienced 117-degree weather coming to our home and then trying to survive. That's literally a deadly combination. And so before we wanted to make a call for people to come and stand with their bodies, we wanted to find out how to do it on paper and how to do that with policy. And what it turns out, we started infiltrating spaces. And for me, the way that we did that was through one of the political parties. Uh, I I'm a Democrat. I at the time would call myself a reluctant Democrat. And I was, I think, maybe an independent even, not because I leaned towards another party, but because I felt like the Democratic Party left me and my community behind. And so I started reluctantly showing up to these spaces. And a lot of times I'd be the only person under the age of 50. I'd be the only person of color. I'd be the only native. And a lot of those spaces, even when they were preaching inclusion and equity, were hostile. They were not friendly places to be in. Um, but I continued to assert myself in these places and bring my friends. And my friends and I would go to these meetings and we would sit in these meetings and we would learn what are their rules? How are they getting things on agenda? How are they deciding what gets to be talked about in this meeting? Who's setting that? How did that person get that? The chair is the person who decides. How did that person get to be the chair? And so we started really finding out what those policies were, what the rules were for different meetings, how you got things on agenda. We were learning the language of policy. And at the same time, we were interacting with a lot of politicians, a lot of candidates, and a lot of electeds. And the very first time that I met an elected, I was like, oh my gosh, this person is a senator? Oh, they're so fancy. And I was so like, I don't even know how to act. Like, oh, I'm just so impressed. And then I talked to them, and they didn't know anything about my community. They didn't know anything about the things that I cared about. It was really disappointing how often that happened. I knew so much and was an expert in my own community and the things that my community needs. And I kind of felt, I think at one point I thought, pardon me, I thought that if I could communicate, here is a need that my community has, and I need this elected official to take it on and make it their issue. And what I really learned is that no, that elected official is going to push whatever reason took them to that office. They might care about your issue, they might care about it. You're lucky if they care about it. And if they care about it, they're going to put it in their back pocket. They're like, oh, that's cool, but I'm still holding my issues, the things that brought me to this office, the things that my voters voted me in for. Not your issue. Your issue is kind of important. I'm going to keep that here in my back pocket, and maybe I'll whip it out every once in a while and flash it around. But really, I'm not going to champion that issue. And it took me a really long time to recognize that and realize that, and also recognize that the people that are making decisions about what gets talked about, what money is spent and where, those are the people who just had the audacity to run for office. They're not the smartest people in the world. Maybe there are, I'm not saying everybody is an idiot or anything like that. But there's no special qualifications that make somebody an effective leader other than you need to know your community and you need to know what your community needs. That I think has been a major part in my work and what led me to eventually run for office. People were telling me that I needed to run for office, and sometimes I even found it kind of offensive because I would be like the one brown person who walks into the room and they'd be like, you could be the chair of this committee. I'm like, I don't even know what this committee does yet. Like, you need to relax. I don't even know if I want to put my name on your BS because I don't even know what y'all are doing. Like, are you even doing anything? And so people were telling me, oh, you need to run for office, you need to run for office. And I had absolutely no interest. Around that time, my kids were in high school. I have a set of twins. They were getting really close to senior year and things like that. And I was in these spaces talking to these people, and then a position. This office in particular was the one that I was most obsessed with, and I read everything about this office, and I would come into this office and I would, you know, drop off registration forms and I would pick up new ones and I would be talking with the staff and I would call and I would send emails to the previous recorder. They hated me here. Well, just the recorder. Uh, all of the others, it was really interesting. Excuse me, it was really interesting because I would learn something every time I came in, and they would learn something every time I came in. And so it was really positive. But what actually made me run for office was the idea that the little bit of tribal outreach that they were doing, I was concerned that a new person would come in, a white supremacist, anti-Native racist, because that's who was running at the time. And they would decide, no, your community doesn't need this additional information, even though you have streets that you can't name and houses with no house numbers and people living in communities where there's a difference between tribal elections and county elections, and nobody understands the difference. And so it wasn't so much that I wanted to run for office, it's that I needed to. I had to at least try. And I really had to go in with the mind frame of like, well, even if I lose, at least I've changed the conversation. And I won. I ran for office in 2020 and I won in a landslide in my primary against another other Democrat. And then I ran against the other party and I was also successful in that. And I was sworn in and took office January 2021. And I thought before running for office, this this office, the recorder's office, was quiet. It was administrative. Most people had no idea what we did here. Most people had no idea that the recorder was an elected position. It was an administrative position. Nobody cared. But because of all of the conspiracy theories and all of the questions about election integrity, this position has actually catapulted to now I'm so recognizable within not just the Native community or in political realms. Walking down the street, people will shout out to me, Recorder, Gabriella, or they would, or I get approached at IHOP at midnight. Thank you for your service. Like it's a very visually um demanding position now, and it was not that when I first ran. I was expecting it to be a quiet, sleepy, I'm going to review envelopes all day, which is something that I do. But for it to be as prominent of a position, this absolutely was not when I first ran. So I know I'll talk maybe 2 more minutes, just a little bit more about that community engagement, and then I can open up for questions if you have time for that. Um, One of the things that I like to tell people, especially if you've thought to yourself like, oh, I'm not very political, or, I don't have time for that right now. Nobody does. Nobody has time for it. I was not in the right place in my life to run for office. I was broke out of my mind. I was my car at one point needed a new car engine, and that alone could have taken me out of the race. It was $5,000 that could have changed that trajectory of my life forever because of the focus of that, just being a working class individual, an educator, and then trying to go and be in this realm of politics and be the administrator of an office. There is never any good time. Sometimes you're going to have to make the time. You're going to have to seize an opportunity. The previous recorder had retired, and to get an incumbent out of office is super hard. And so you kind of that sped up my timeline for thinking that I might want to run for office for anything. One great thing, though, I will share, because of my community involvement for years in my own community, going to these boring meetings and going and learning the policy and all of those things, through that, when I decided to run for office, it wasn't that I was introducing myself to the community. The community already knew that I was established as a trustworthy person who was hardworking, who cared about our community, who was knowledgeable and smart. It was simply me informing them that this is what I was doing. And so because of that, I quickly got a lot of community support. I got a lot of endorsements, and I was able to grab that momentum. And, you know, it was, there's no wrong or right way to do any of this work. I think by following your interests and the things that you care about, and making sure that other people are talking the things that we think are normal that every other person cares about, other people don't care about them. And it's shocking because I will sometimes talk about things that, oh, of course this is an important thing that everybody cares about, right? And then I'll find out other people had no idea it was important. And so sometimes it's having to state the obvious. And that's taken me a really long time. Even the concept of like, oh, Native Americans are people and we deserve clean water. Like that was something that I thought everybody believed in until Standing Rock. Until Standing Rock, and they were saying, no, these people shouldn't get that clean water. No, there's a pipeline that needs to go in there. That's more important than the clean water and the people. And so, it's really important that even if you have those ideas, you have those beliefs, it's not going to help if it's just kept within your small community and just within your echo chamber when you're all saying the same thing. It has to somehow figure a way to make it out of that. Because if other people don't know that, they're not going to fight for that too. They're not going to make that connection between how important that is. And so you have to talk about it. You have to talk about it. And one of the things that I did a lot, and you can visit my website. It's Gabriella for Recorder .org, I think. I don't know my website. But I wrote articles about education. I wrote articles about natives and education and those kinds of things. And so, that was helping to form my arguments for opinions and things that I cared about. And so, um, show up to a meeting. Show up to a meeting where people are making decisions about something and just raise your hand. And if they won't let you call, they won't call on you because you didn't do it the right way, then show up again and then fill out that piece of paper or send in that notice or whatever it is that you're supposed to do. Learn the rules so that you can start putting this on the agenda of other people too. So I will go ahead and stop there.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Gabriella. Again, I'm inspired the second, third, fourth time. And I really appreciate because our last conversation, she was really urging me individually to write an article as well and to take a look at her work as well. And so I really appreciate any connection with you. And you're right. You're absolutely right. Whatever is on the heart, on the spirit, on the mind, is really hard to illustrate or communicate, especially to a broad population or group. So can't say thank you enough. And I really appreciate you here. And I want to move on to questions and answers. This is more relaxed. I want there to be discussion, but because this is a Indigenous focused group, I just want to open the space first to any Indigenous folks that identify first to kind of take the floor if you would like. You can either raise your digital hand or you can just feel free to unmute and say thank you or ask any questions if you would like. So we'll give some time here first, but feel free.
Dakota Shi Bijitsi Konsei. My name is Kimber. Hello and thank you. I'm in between breakfast and lunch and haven't eaten yet and have another meeting after this, so apologize for being off camera. I'm an enrolled member of the Chiricahua Apache Members Band Nation. I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and so I'm infiltrating your Arizona ACES meeting. But I do work in Arizona, and I just really appreciate the inspiration you provided and also some insight, especially around that idea that what we may think are like basic needs, or everybody would think this, or everybody would already know this, and thinking about really being able to articulate ourselves around those topics that maybe other people aren't aware of, or it's not something they care about. So thank you very much. Very inspiring.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you, Kimber. Thank you for coming in, sharing your voice. Before anyone wants to pop in, I just wanted to take a look at the chat and let you know. Waylon says, I developed a PowerPoint to illustrate the differences between Democrats and Republicans. I developed my presentation for my fellow tribal members. I am Wallapai because I saw that they weren't voting. They weren't paying attention to the political discussions. Thank you, Waylon. And then we have Carol says, thank you. Waylon continues, I start my presentation with food stamps, WIC, entitlements, etc. Everyone needs to know how and why public assistance programs are a political issue. My email, he's placed his email there. I'm willing to share with Native communities, audiences, etc. Thank you, Waylon. And let's see. Oh, cool. Okay. Anyone else? Come on in, Waylon. Please share.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see, Wallapai Tribe, we are in Northwest Arizona. We're the tribe that built the Skywalk in the Grand Canyon. We opened and closed the casino in 1995. It was open for 8 months. It didn't work. It was a bad idea. So it was an expensive lesson. So all we do is tourism, and we do really well for a little tribe in the middle of nowhere. My tribe is 50 miles from Walmart. That is the definition of rural, 50 miles from Walmart. So we're pretty rural, like a lot of tribes. And again, we're out there by ourselves, right? We're sovereign. We have our own language, our own culture. We're out there by ourselves. There is no diversity on my reservation. The only white people that work there are for BIA or IHS or the public school. When I was a kid, we'd go to school with the children of some of the teachers, but that's not the case anymore. And so it's just us. And I think the downside is, again, we don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, politics, and what Doge did, just went and cut and slashed everything. indiscriminately, because people thought that's new or it's mean. It's what the Republicans hang their hat on. They want everybody to get a job, pull their own weight, buy their own food, pay their own bills. That's why food stamp is an issue. If they had their way, they would get rid of all the public assistance programs, right? It's about rugged individualism. And so again, that's just one issue, and we don't know what or why the debates that are happening. I developed my presentation in 2013 and built it little by little. I've gotten up to like 80 slides with a lot of information because I try to cover all the issues. But I am proud to say that my tribal council heard my presentation in 2015, and I wrote a resolution. I had to get help writing a resolution, but they passed it in favor of immigration reform. And I tried to approach a couple other tribes, but I don't have the ends, I don't have the connections, and I really didn't get anywhere. And plus, every tribal communities can probably have a different view, somewhat different, on immigration, on every issue. But on immigration, I think the one that I did approach just had a different view. And so it didn't go very far. I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop. I was on council for 10 years and I could talk forever about nothing. But my plan at the time was if I could get tribes to pass resolutions in support of immigration reform, it is two pieces of paper, cost half a cent. Then we could go down the future if we needed to. We could go to the Latino community and say, hey, look, we had your back. Here's our resolution. We need your help on this issue. That was my idea. And I saw it as a springboard into my tribe and other tribes taking a position on gun control, on minimum wage, on public school vouchers, because in my humble opinion, tribes are not in the game. We are not participating. We're sitting on the sidelines in our own sovereign cultures, that we think we are sovereign and untouchable and out of the public view, and think we're kind of, sliding by, but we're not, right? We're in the back of somebody's mind somewhere, and we need to get in the game. And so I'm still doing the presentations, getting around slowly. It's kind of hard to get on the agenda of a tribal council. And so I'm glad that I've heard a little bit about I can't see your last name, Miss Kelly, but so I'm glad that I joined today. My wife is Navajo. I'm on Navajo reservation. Actually, we don't have running water here, so I boiled water and have to do the dishes, and so that's what I'm doing. But anyway, I'm glad I joined in. Thank you, Miss Clouder. Did I say your name right?
Stouter. Yeah.
Stouter. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Waylon. Yeah, we send our good thoughts out your way, and you're definitely heard. Your voice, your thoughts, your presentation, that work. It sounds amazing. I know that there's a couple here in this group that want to connect with you and connect on that presentation. Also, I'll be reaching out as well. I'd like to hear your voice even more, especially in this space. Yeah, so I'm thinking about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. I'm kind of hearing a theme as far as voting, what the interests are and how to get those interests into these political spaces so that can be communicated correctly. And then also other issues of being left behind or public assistance. We're still kind of behind the mark to say that. And what effect does that have on our little ones' brains, right? On top of accessibility and that nurturing environment. To me, it doesn't feel or sound that supportive all the time. So let's just start thinking that way. And Marlo, come on in.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much. She kia ani nashla do kia ani bashishin. Hashlashin dashite do khanangani dashanella kotao e sanenshla. So I just wanted to thank Gabriella for her presentation. I really related to what you shared about how hard it can be to get other people to care about what you care about. In my role as a community engagement coordinator with First Things First, my work focuses on advocating for children under the age of 5 here in the Navajo Nation. So you know, you have to show up to meetings, you really have to learn the process and really encourage tribal officials, community members, elected leaders to really see and care about the needs of our youngest children. So a lot of times, you know, I'm speaking on behalf of children and families, and sometimes we're met with people who aren't even from the community that are sitting in these positions and don't really fully understand those needs. So your presentation was really uplifting, and it reminded me why continuing to show up matters. And it inspired me to I want to keep going even when it feels challenging. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, Marlo. Awesome. Gabriella.
Just to touch base on something that Waylon said, he talked about the resolutions. When Indivisible Tono really started getting organized, one of the things that we asked our tribe for, and it was like pulling teeth. We actually had to write a resolution for pride, acknowledging pride. And that was something that had never been done on our reservation before. And, you know, there was some back and forth, a lot of back and forth the first year that we did it. And, you know, people were like, I don't know how the public's going to take this. And overwhelmingly, people were really excited and really thankful. And we heard a lot of support, and a lot of people were talking about it and having this open conversation about LGBTQ people in our community and how they've always been part of our community. And we had a pride event, and a small number of people showed up. Actually, not a small number, a large number of people showed up. The next year, the resolution, we submitted it again in that same month, and it went up even faster. And then the next year, we didn't submit, I'm sorry, another group submitted their resolution before we did. And that was like, wow, that was actually really cool. Like, we obviously inspired this, and, you know, people want to keep this going. And so then other community members took it upon themselves. And then this year, the government did it on its own because it's something that that's a tradition now. And this is like the fourth or fifth year that they've now done that resolution. That, again, that first resolution was pulling teeth. And I think that's something that's really important to recognize, that sometimes the things that you talk about are not going to be easily understood. Maybe they're going to sound controversial. Maybe they're going to sound outrageous. And the more that we talk about it, the more that we normalize it, the more that we normalize the idea that young children need and deserve services and how it's good for our entire community, the more that we talk about that, the more it becomes the norm, where everybody, like, yeah, that does, even though I don't have a 5-year-old, that does make sense for our community. That does make for healthier communities. And we're sometimes having to put that language in there. And so, you know, and to Marlo, I encourage you to, like, specifically state with every presentation you do, the reason this is important is because. And that's something, again, it's something that we don't think is it's like, oh, of course we all know that. We all know that. But being able to say those things does two things. Number one, it reaffirms and has it maybe possibly written, maybe recorded. It's out there, it's out in the public. And then number two, for people who do agree but didn't know it was an issue, it provides them with the language. So a lot of times I will give this language to people when I talk about the importance of voting, and they have never thought about the need to have to talk to their family about the importance of voting. And they're like, oh, I thought everybody thought this was important, but you're right. My cousin and my nephew and my niece aren't voting. Oh, you know what I mean? So it gives the community a script. This is how we do thought leadership. And this is how we lead and make those changes. It has to happen in the mind first before it can happen on paper.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. Love this conversation. Cheryl? Come on in.
Hi, my name is Cheryl. I'm from the San Carlos Unified School District in San Carlos, Arizona. I am a registered member of the San Carlos Apache tribe. I am the parent educator supervisor for our parent educator program and very interested in this whole topic. My second mother was one of the people who was pushing for everyone to be registered to vote. She worked for the county. She had a lot of presentations down here. And one of the barriers that we have found out, the reason why people don't vote here is they don't even vote in the tribal elections. I think we only had maybe 37%, 38% register and vote during our tribal elections. And what we have pretty much discovered we have like 80% unemployment, but a lot of our parents are dropping out of school. They have fifth grade education, eighth grade educations, and they start their families and they never go back to school, which also has this trend where they don't see the value in learning anything from school. They don't see education as a value. So that passes on to their children. And so we have homes, we have families that are not educated, that don't see the value of voting, that don't realize that the voting impacts their daily lives, like the food stamps and AFDC and all of those things, WIC. They don't see that value. And it's really difficult to try to tell them how important that is, right down to registering their children for the tribe, getting them enrolled. Even that is a difficult process here. When we have students that are applying for the JOM scholarships, one of the things that is a requirement for the JOM scholarship is you need to be a registered member of a tribe. And if parents are not going through the process of registering their children to even be enrolled members anywhere, there's a problem. So for some reason, being in the school district, there's some sort of blockage, or maybe there's generations that have been formed here where it's no longer, what can I do to help myself? It's, what can you do for me? What can I get from you for free? And for us, it's a struggle because we work with the state with the McKinney-Vento program, where we're working with our homeless families. We have quite a jump from last year of how many kids we have that are homeless. So our McKinney-Vento kids who are homeless, we have their parents who are not interested in any of this stuff. So it's a problem for us. And as I'm listening, I'm trying to think of what are you guys saying that I can use in as some sort of leverage to show them that this matters. This really is an important part of who we are as people. How do I extract all of this information and put it in a way that they will understand? So that's where my struggle is right now, is listening to all of this and seeing it happen. And for me, we're even right now, one of the big topics for our tribe is how are we going to count our tribal members? Are we going to continue doing by blood quantum? Are we going to do it by since we're a matrilineal clan, do we do it that way, or do we do it by the percentage of blood you have in your family? And it's a big thing going on down here, and it's just even something that is that important, we're not going to have very many voters on it. We're not going to have people participating. We're going to have people who should be involved but will not be involved because they choose not to. So I'm trying to think of things that you guys are saying and ways of showing how important this is. in a way that they'll understand. But remember, we're dealing with people who have a very low educational knowledge of any of this stuff. And a lot of times they think you're talking over them because they don't understand. And it just that whole process is what I'm thinking about, and I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Really appreciate your voice and your thoughts and your concerns. So I think this is an opportunity to build more of those relationships and connections outside of this. That's the beautiful part, because we're not doomed. This is not a roadblock. We can continue to hold each other's hands and lean on one another, because we are strong people and we hold bold and strong medicine inside. So what a gift. I just want to pause right here for a second and ask if Sandy, did you want to come in real quick before Gabriella?
Cassandra, is there a way to stop the recording, the AI recording? Is that possible?
Oh, the recording of this meeting. The AI is no longer in this room.
It says it's recording on my end. I don't.
Oh, it is recorded. I can stop it for now, and then after your share, get it going again. Okay.
Sandra, actually, you'll be okay if it's recording. It's just the AI transcription is the
Oh,
issue.
got it. Okay.
Yeah, just the AI transcription.
think you
Okay.
can respond, read, stop, and it'll stop recording for you.
That's what I've been trying to do. It's still, anyway. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Sandoval. I'm a tribal enrolled member with the Navajo Nation. Gabriella, thank you for your insights. I've read about your what was going on in your community with the issue. I've been following it, and you know, it's good to share all this information. So I'm the tribal liaison for Division of Employment and Rehabilitation Services, which is under DES, and then representing also the Office of Tribal Relations. Cassandra, thank you for having me here. I really want to connect with everyone here because we talk about ACEs, right? Early adverse childhood experiences. And I think that is the root cause of a lot of tribal, members' issues, how they, I'm a product of that. Let me just start there. Out of, the 10 questions that they give you, I scored a 9, 8 to a 9. And when I first took it, I was so proud of it. I was like, wow, look at my score. My score is a 9. But then I was like, well, why am I so proud of it? Well, because people have been telling me constantly, you're resilient, you're a tribal member, you have it in your blood to be strong. It broke me down. But what I want to share is we do have a reentry program, and I am really focused on that program to connect ACEs, having meetings, going to these workshops. It's like, oh, we can fix it with unemployment, we can fix it with housing, but we're not really addressing the root cause of all these issues, even in our community. And so that's why I'm here. But thank you, everyone. I like to connect with all of you. One, I want to expand my network, and then also to work in other tribal community members because I do work with all the 22 tribes. So Gabriella, again, thank you. I look forward to connecting with you, and then also you, Cassandra. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. And I figured it out. We're always learning, right? I turned that AI off. Thank you for bringing that up. That protection is really important. Gabriella, come on in.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the last woman who
Cheryl.
commented, or Cheryl.
Cheryl, yeah.
Thank you for that. I often get questions about that. I think people are really frustrated that people aren't doing more. And I think a lot of times they're like, how do I talk somebody into participating? How do I drag somebody over onto our side, onto what we're talking about? And frankly, like we're talking about with these, childhood experiences, or we're dealing with the Native community, which has a lot of trauma, a lot of socioeconomic barriers, a lot of, there's so many different things, so many different factors. And so, especially, I actually will tell people, like, voting is, you might be surprised to hear it, but voting is not the most important thing that you can do. As an election officer, I'm one of the highest highest ranking election officers in the state. I do not think voting is the most important thing you can do. It's the least that you can do. If you have the privilege and the right to vote. But I do recognize that voting and being involved and understanding a lot of these things are privileges. And it's not up to us to have to argue with people and drag them across the finish line for the things that we feel are important. We don't know what's happening in the lives of other people. We don't know the trauma that they've been experiencing, or the factors that have led them to the point that they're at. And it's none of our business, right? We try to do the best that we can, and we provide the services that we can. But at the end of the day, people are individuals and they make their individual choices. But what I do tell people is, for every person that you're trying to drag over the finish line, there's somebody who just isn't participating because they didn't know. And they didn't know how to access the services. They didn't know how to register to vote. They didn't know how to do any of these things. And they didn't know that that was open to them. That, I think, is something that, keeps me going. When I think about the 780,000 registered voters in Pima County, sometimes we only get, like, in a big election, maybe 500,000 people vote. 400,000 people decided not to. There's no one thing that I can say or no one thing I can do, but I can continue to have those one-on-one relationships and encourage people. And sometimes, they're not going to want to listen to you, but maybe somebody's auntie is going to listen to you. And maybe that auntie is going to then take it on and be that person in their community. And, maybe we're going to be turning to the matriarchs and asking people to help us. And if they're hearing it from you, and then they're hearing it from their auntie, and they're hearing it from, some other person, then it starts to, again, be that norm. And we've changed that. And so, as discouraging as it can be, as heartbreaking as it can be, especially when you're talking about, people going through Johnson O'Malley, and, people who are seeking the services that you all are working with in particular, they're people often going in crisis. They're people who do not have, um, generational wealth or generational concepts of health, mental health, and well-being. And so we have to just recognize that we can only do so much. We can only do the best that we can, and we need to just continue to communicate to the people who are open and ready. And it's a challenge. It's going to continue to be a challenge. And as people feel more and more left behind, we're going to see more of that before it gets better. People right now are struggling so hard. Everyone is. And that's going to continue, and that's okay. But we're going to keep doing the work. So my heart goes out to you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Wow. What a great meeting. What a great meeting. We are at the hour. I can't say thank you enough. I'm just overwhelmed with the brilliance in this room. And Gabriella, again, thank you for being our special guest and saying yes. And, all the work that you do in your environment, your family, your home, all of that space. We just send our blessings that way to you as our way to thank you. And for each of you today in this committee, your actions today to show up and be present is really acknowledged and respected. Again, my name is Cassandra Stouter. I'm your new chairwoman for this AZ ACES consortium that focuses on rural Indigenous ACES. So please reach out to your colleagues if they work with Indigenous communities, specifically children. Please invite them. I'm not one that focuses on titles or degrees. So if they're community people, they hold the most knowledge at most times. So please invite them, let them come into our circle, and let us all process the words here and honor them with respect and allow them to do what they do in Creator's way. Working in our lives and our children's lives, it's so important. So I just want to remind y'all that our next meeting is going to be February 4th, is the first Wednesday of February, and all of our committee meetings are always going to be the first Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m. and that's Arizona time. So feel free. In February, we have Randy Begay from San Carlos Unified School District. He will come in and do a short talk on mental health and culture and tradition that he has integrated into his work with the youth. He's got stories and experience working directly with our youth in San Carlos. So I'm really excited about that. You'll see some flyers that will be coming out soon. And I am the woman behind the emails and the flyers. So that is me. You have a face to all of that content now. But yeah, my main goal, just being this new chair position, is to build our community first. So I'm still in that phase. It's only been since October that I've been in this position. So please speak to our relatives, bring the aunties, grandmas, and grandpas, and all our children as well, too. We want to hear from them. We want to hear from everybody. What's going to be the best thing to support these adverse experiences and moving forward, what's going to be the medicine that will help us in the future. That's what I'm focused on. So again, thank you. And I will send a recap email to everybody. It will include the recording and it will include notes. And I hope to get in touch with Gabriella. She shared her website and some other resources. So hopefully I can grab those from her and compile it into the email as well. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. But other than that, have a blessed and wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.